You were standing so close to the man beside you that you could feel him breathing. Spears were aimed specifically at your legs and your face, the only parts the shield did not cover. The man next to you was a farmer who had never fought before in his life. This is what it was actually like inside a Viking shield wall. You are a farmer in 9th century Scandinavia. Pop culture has convinced you that you are destined for glory, that you will grow up to be a towering warrior who sails across the seas, raids distant shores for silver, and earns eternal fame. That is not your life at all. Your life is growing cold-resistant crops like oats and cabbage, keeping your livestock from freezing to death in the long winters, and hoping the local chieftain does not decide to burn your house down over a land dispute. You do not own chainmail or a proper sword. Swords are expensive, so it's not reserved for kings and men who actually matter. You have a spear with a cheap iron tip, a hand axe you normally use to chop firewood, and a round shield made of linden wood. That is your entire arsenal as a fighting man. For the first 20 years of your life, that is enough to get by. You focus on surviving brutal winters and pulling rocks out of frozen dirt. Then, your local Jarl, your warlord, decides he wants more land, more silver, and more power. He declares war on a neighboring Jarl and calls upon the peasant levy. You have just been drafted into his army. You are now a fyrdman, an ordinary farmer conscripted into battle. You have zero professional military training, but the Jarl does not care about that. He does not need a master swordsman standing in his line. He needs a warm body that can hold a piece of wood. You march for days through freezing rain, surviving on stale bread and dried fish, until you reach the battlefield. When you arrive, the Jarl's veteran warriors shove you and hundreds of other terrified farmers into a massive, tightly packed line. You are told to overlap your shield with the man to your left and the man to your right. This is the Viking shield wall, the primary battle formation of the Norse age. From the outside, across the field, it looks like a brilliant, impenetrable fortress of painted wood and iron. From the inside, it feels like a suffocating wooden coffin. Brutal Reality 1. The formation was designed to trap you inside it. You are packed in so tightly you can barely draw a full breath. The smell of wet wool, fear, and unwashed bodies is completely overwhelming. You are standing shoulder to shoulder with men who are just as terrified as you are. You can feel the chest of the man beside you expanding and contracting as he breathes. It is the blacksmith from your village standing right there next to you. He is shaking so badly, his teeth are chattering against each other. That physical contact, the crushing pressure of the men pressing against your shoulders and your back, is the only thing keeping you from dropping your shield and running. The formation does not hold because men are brave or fearless. It holds because the men are so tightly packed together that panic becomes physically difficult to act on. The moment that pressure releases, the entire thing falls apart instantly. Across the muddy field, the enemy Jarl has formed his own shield wall of men just like you. The two walls slowly advance toward each other with grim determination. There is no glorious cinematic charge across open ground. A shield wall is entirely about unit cohesion and staying together. If one man breaks forward out of line, there is a dangerous gap in the wall. If there is a gap in the wall, the enemy gets inside and everyone around it dies. So you move forward, step by agonizing step, until the two walls crash violently into each other. The noise hits you like a physical force, splintering wood, screaming men, and the wet sound of iron tearing into flesh. Now you are caught in a brutal claustrophobic shoving match with nowhere to go. The pressure from both sides is completely unimaginable from the outside. You cannot swing your axe because there is not enough room to pull your arm back. All you can do is hold your shield steady and desperately try not to fall. But holding the shield is not enough to keep you safe. The round shield covers your torso, protecting your chest and your stomach. It does not cover your face or your legs. The enemy knows this well. Enemy spears deliberately target your exposed shins, trying to sweep your legs out from under you. If you fall down inside the shield wall, you do not get back up again. You will be trampled to death in the mud by your own side before you can recover. At the same time, spears thrust over the top of the shields, aiming directly for your eyes, your throat, and your teeth. You spend hours locked in this horrifying, exhausting standoff, dodging spear points aimed at your face while desperately trying to protect your exposed knees. Every muscle in your body burns with a deep, unbearable fatigue. Pure terror becomes your permanent and only state of existence out there, and by the end, according to historical accounts, there would be precious few soldiers remaining on either side of the field. The hours of sustained close combat at this proximity was not the glorious clash of armies the sagas describe. It was a slow, grinding attrition that left both formations nearly destroyed before anyone could even claim victory. Brutal reality 2. The most dangerous men in the formation were on your side. At the very front of your formation, mixed deliberately among the elite warriors, are the berserkers. These are the shock troops of the Viking Age. Warriors who fight without armor, having entered an uncontrolled state of absolute battle rage, the Norse called berserker. It began with shivering and chattering teeth, the face swelling and changing color. A hot-headedness would build steadily into a blind, consuming fury. Then they would howl like wild animals, bite the rim of their own shields, and cut down everything within reach. Everything within reach, without discriminating between friend and foe standing beside them. You watch as the berserker standing just ahead of you begins to chew the rim of his own wooden shield. Foam is dripping from his mouth as the rage takes hold of him completely. He is howling, a deep guttural sound that cuts right through all the noise of the battle around you. And then the fury takes over him completely, and he moves. He launches himself into the enemy line, hacking and slashing with zero regard for his own safety or survival. But a man in a blind, psychotic rage does not stop to check his targets before he swings. In the claustrophobic chaos of the shield wall as he swings his axe in wild, sweeping arcs, he is just as likely to bury his weapon into the face of a friendly farmer as an enemy soldier. Everyone else has to fight around them while managing their own survival at the same time. You are terrified of the spear points aiming for your legs from across the line. You are equally terrified of the howling madman fighting on your own side. Brutal reality 3. The wall did not fall because of the fighting. It fell because of the waiting. The battle drags on for hours of pushing, stabbing, bleeding, and screaming. You are covered in blood and you no longer know whose it actually is. A shield wall is entirely dependent on the psychology of the men inside it. As long as the men believe they can win, the wall holds together. But the men at the back of the formation are not actually fighting anyone directly. They are pushing forward, listening to the horrific screams of the men being butchered at the front of the line. The psychological toll of standing in the rear, close enough to hear every death but unable to see anything, just waiting for your turn to move forward, was in many ways worse than the fighting itself. Then the turning point arrives without any warning at all. A farmer in the very back row finally loses his nerve and cracks. He drops his spear to the ground and turns and runs away from the battle. The man next to him sees it happen and panics and runs too. This triggers what historians describe as an accelerating failure cascade. Panic spreading like a virus from the back of the formation, directly to the front, eating away at the wall from behind. You are holding the line, exhausted, bleeding, still fighting, when suddenly the crushing pressure from behind you completely disappears. The support that was keeping you in place is simply gone now. You look over your shoulder and half your army is already fleeing into the trees. The moment the wall is breached anywhere, the entire formation disintegrates almost instantly. Organized combat becomes disorganized slaughter with no order or structure left. And here is the final brutal truth buried inside the legend of the shield wall. The men who survived were usually the ones at the very back who ran first. The men at the front, the ones who held longest, who endured the most, who were still fighting when the wall broke, those were the ones who died in the mud. You are at the front and you have been there for hours. You drop your shield and turn to run on exhausted legs. The enemy surges through the gaps in the broken line all around you. You feel a sudden sharp impact between your shoulder blades and the muddy ground comes rushing up to meet you. You did not die a glorious death in honorable single combat. There are no Valkyries coming to carry you away to Valhalla. You were a farmer forced into a meat grinder, treated as completely disposable, and you are going to die alone in the mud. Another forgotten footnote in a warlord's endless quest for power. That is the real unglamorous reality of the Viking shield wall. not the legendary formation of fearless warriors the sagas describe in detail. A suffocating crush of ordinary men enduring hours of pure terror for the pride and wealth of men who were nowhere near the front line. The Jarl who ordered you into that formation did not fight inside it himself. He watched from a position of safety, surrounded by his veteran household warriors, while farmers with hand axes held the line and bled. The shield wall worked as a tactic, right up until the moment it did not. And when it failed, it was always the men at the very bottom of the hierarchy who paid the full price. It was always the farmers who died in the mud.